Good morning and welcome to the Awakening Potential Show, where ordinary softens and the extraordinary is allowed to emerge. I'm your host, Karen Rudolph, and a transformational journey guide, uh, founder of Tranquil Solutions. I'm a speaker and author of Spiraling Up, Command Your Life. This show is devoted to real conversations that awaken not just conversations, but awaken possibility that expands perspective and supports us in spiraling upward through life with greater awareness, clarity, embodiment, and purpose. Because transformation doesn't happen by pretending we have it all together. It happens the moment we are willing to reconnect with ourselves honestly, consciously, and courageously. And today's guest I'm really excited to have, is in the conversation as well. So please join us in welcoming Slavi Karaslavov. Well,
Yeah.
he's 17 years old. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this show.
Well, thank you for being here. I know it's later in the day for you. And one of the things that I did want to share with the listening audience is that you're a developer and content creator, and you support people in getting motivated to begin uh, when they're thinking of pursuing their purpose in life, which I think is amazing at 17 years old. What inspired you? Um, to really get into that line of focus? And where were you prior that led up to that thought?
I would say that it all started quite a few years back when I was 13 years old because my father is from the military. He has some two colleagues, which are actually brothers, and they enrolled on this platform called South Uni. And they were like, hey, why don't you try this out? And my father was like, no, I don't really, he's not really into this, right? He wants to like spend his time, for example, with me or with like the other parts of the family. So he would appreciate like not going into this. And he told me about it so that I could try that platform. And since then, I've been kind of thriving in this space, I would say, in technology, but kind of like lately, I've been quite off from that, mostly trying to focus on content creation because, how do I say, on one of the both spaces are quite different. One gives you immediate feedback, no matter if it's like little or kind of like expanding, blowing up videos, and the other is kind of like the slow burn of developing something, like trying to find hope that your final product would have vision, because the other way around, seeking users before you actually have your prototype, it's quite harder when you don't have an audience. So both ways are much harder in the technology space over content creation. But generally, all of it started because of family issues, I would say, and that kind of motivated me to like continue on in a better.
It's so enlightening because most people don't even know what they want or where they're going by your age. And I certainly did. And I think it's very admirable. So, you and I had a little bit of a chance to speak prior, and I'm just so enamored by somebody like yourself who has that focus in a direction. What was it that, you gave us a little background right here, but what was it what is it, I should say, that's keeping you focused? And do you know where you're going with it? Yeah, any idea yet?
So I would say that my work is kind of scattered around. I'm mostly kind of like experimenting in lots of spaces because it's not like a physical business where you just have like a focus to get, for example, 500 more customers, 1,000 more customers, and so on, and like bring up more revenue. No, here is you try a lot of, for example, ideas, see what sticks, see what doesn't, learn from your mistakes, and it's not like this manual way of just grinding out exact parts. It's very different, and a lot of how do I say, searching and understanding of customers is involved. So that's why I said that I'm kind of jiggling both of the things, both work as a developer, trying to think of ideas, the other side having content creation, which is still ideas but in a different format. And I would say that having like making people, for example, laugh or feel a certain way is certainly also a win. I've seen, for example, in these kind of like the Balkans where I live, there has been a big, how do I say, push off and not that much of liking towards influencers. And I would say that is because a lot of their content is not really educational. And for example, there's nothing bad with that if there's people that will actually watch it. They decide if they want, if they see like any benefits, like they weigh the advantages and the disadvantages. So I'm mostly scattered and just trying to see what I like to do, and then try to focus on that. But I'm still in the experimental phase, and I'll say that I'll be in that for like many more years.
So you're human, is what I'm hearing. And that's how we do it,
Yeah.
right? Try it, trial and error. So let me ask you this, just for the listening audience. Why don't you tell us where you're from? And your English is amazingly perfect, which is very admirable. So where are you from and where did you learn such perfect English?
So I'm from Bulgaria, and it's like in the core of the Balkans here in like Eastern Europe. And generally, we have been learning quite a lot of English in school. But what I've seen with my classmates is that they don't really speak it well. They even know some kind of like rules and grammar, like parts of the language better than me, but they can't kind of like utilize them in actual conversations because they haven't went into those. And I, on the other end, have been talking with like probably hundreds of people throughout platforms like Discord and wherever else I could actually manage to, and also games, like all of these places that I can. And that's kind of taught me to speak these rules out without even knowing that they exist. That's kind of like my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's so admirable because if I were to attempt to learn Bulgaria today, I'd be like, bull. I wouldn't be, I don't know how I would be able to do that.
Yeah.
But then again, growing up in an English country, this is where I almost wish personally that because I grew up here in the States, the United States, English is all around me. More in southern Florida where I am, there's a lot of Spanish, and the Spanish language is becoming very, very popular here. And we don't have like Europe, it's like connected to other countries where you could learn different languages. Do you speak more than one language? Well, two now that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so except these two, we have also been learning Russian, but I'm not really that much into it. I've tried using an application to learn another language, and that was Chinese, but I quickly like something like that because I don't think I found the kind of like exact purpose or like of doing that. Because if you don't have a place to kind of like utilize this, it's kind of like you're going to forget it. Also, their exact alphabet is quite hard to kind of like comprehend and then utilize when you're writing. So it must be only vocal, only conversational learning, and it does make it harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really admire because to my ear, you sound perfect English. There's like skips in it. So thank you for communicating that one. So are you in school right now, or what's going on?
Yeah, I'm in school and it's summer, so it's the last. So yeah, I was just in 11th grade, and I'm going to be going into 12th grade, my final year of school, and it's going to be probably my hardest year because I have to make a decision by the end if whether or not I want to continue working a normal job, if I want to start something myself, or if I want to go to university, and what exactly that will be.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest choices we ever have to make. And 9 times out of 10, we put so much pressure on ourselves because we have to do something or we feel we have to do something. And then we go into a career and then we don't end up staying in that career. So I always say, look at what is your heart singing, like really fills you with joy, and you're going to be doing for a long time. I used to think personally, there were so many things I wanted to do. One of the things I wanted to do, Slavi, was bring dying plants back to life. I love plants and I loved it. And my dad said, no, you'll never make a career out of that. Become a nurse. So I became a nurse and I enjoyed it. I really did. I learned a lot. Everything is a lesson, right? But I'm not a nurse today. I burnt out in nursing. It didn't bring me joy during burnout whatsoever because as an empath, I was bringing everybody's stuff home, which doesn't work. Do you have any idea for yourself what might bring you joy that you want to pursue or look, right? Because it's always trial and error, like your program.
Yeah, right now it has been mainly trying to go into content creation. I would say that it's actually more fun than actual programming because you the errors that happen in it, it's mostly less of feedback you get because of the lower views, but you're still getting feedback, while the programming side of things is more of the pad that you'd get burned out very often. And that is not something I've kind of feel that I appreciate, and especially these years that AI has kind of been on all news and kind of developing even more. Not that it's at the state where it could do things alone, or it would have been too, but people are starting to use it a lot more. They're not sparing with it, and yeah, I would say that I could kind of into that kind of business, entrepreneurial kind of space if I managed to find exact, would it be courses or, a university for it. But generally, what I would go to a uni for would be to get this 4 or 5 year runway so that I can test, like I can continue the trial and error phase.
Yeah, I love it. So are you using AI a lot these days? And I can't imagine my generation, we did not have AI at all. It's so new. I have children that are older than you. So, they used to be in the house and I'd say, how do I work this? And they would hook me up. Now it's like I don't have that luxury anymore. So it's been trial and error for me. Well, how has AI been for you? And well, how are you utilizing it?
So AI has been getting quite a lot in this job, and you could use it for literally anything. Research, trying to automate some repetitive tasks and ideas, kind of scripts, maybe even edit your videos. Something that I tried doing with kind of like a local pipeline of myself, where you'd get a transcription of a video, and then give an AI the whole video into like lots of what each person said from, for example, my podcast, and let it remove the kind of like filler words, dead spaces, and all of these things. So you have like much compacted version rather than just like bit one, which is the raw footage. And then get the final results, run another command, and get the final result, which is like spliced version out of all. That's kind of like a lot of utilities you can have. And literally, when you think about it, it's artificial intelligence. It's intelligence no matter what it is. It's just the fact that there's not this how do I say, shiny creation kind of like spark, but it's this meaning that it could do the same thing that we can do. It just needs specific times because it doesn't have a kind of like a sense of its own to say I'm going to do this at this time. It must be taught, but it has a lot of capabilities.
Yeah. So, is that something you play with often or not too much at this point?
Yeah, I do. I use it. I try some. I would say that it's almost replaced how I usually work, and it's just the fact that you move much faster, and it seems much easier when you're kind of delegating the work off. You feel like a project manager, but it's also an issue that comes up. That is, your skills are kind of away if you're using it too much, and those can be regained if you have the time and like not even not courage but kind of like interest to go into that, I would say.
Interesting, because I just had a thought of it. You're in school. Do you find yourself, your classmates, are you using AI? And how do we used to get nailed for plagiarism all the time back in the day. And I mean, in essence, how do you not, or are you using it for doing your homework and such? Like, how is that playing into the whole realm of education?
So for example, using one of the most famous AIs, it's actually, it has been getting quite a lot in my head, and it's just funny how everybody says that. For example, ChatGPT, they're kind of stating it, the word replacing AI with ChatGPT like it's the only AI in existence. But I'm pretty sure it was the first kind of like company to have models out, and that's why everybody kind of called it AI because of the hype from the start. And it's
Right.
just like so frustrating when you hear, oh, he's using ChatGPT, like can't be using, for example, Gemini, like I can't be using all of these other kind of like AIs, and they just you just kind of see the difference of the technical understanding of people and kind of like their level of intelligence from just these kinds of like comments. And there always can be people that are just not kind of like they don't recognize a difference, or they're just not familiar. But when you hear someone make for example what comments I get to myself, because I usually, when I go to school, when we have technology lessons, I just open up a new browser and open up an AI. And because I'm not logging into my account, it doesn't have my chats, it doesn't have my information regarding me and interests. So I just start off with random questions. What if I started to make this specific app? And it says, okay, I'm like, be as real as possible. And it's like, wait, what if this happened? What if no users came? What if a user wanted this, but you couldn't make it? And I just started off doing this kind of like interesting conversations to unveil more about my thoughts. It doesn't have to be around ideas that I could make as projects. It can be literal life. And a lot of people are like, wait, you're talking with AI, with a machine, isn't that cringe? But to be honest, who can, in nowadays, a lot of people don't really kind of like get their thoughts out anyways. So just no, just do something. And I feel like this is kind of helping out when you kind of have a small like to help you prototype and you just get your stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I use it for brainstorming often. Like, I'll be times I'll wake up sometimes at 3 in the morning and it's like, oh, I have an idea. Let me just run it past and just let me, because it's like getting it out of yourself in a sense. But more so, I'm curious about like homework aspect of it. I mean, when we were in school, we had homework every night. And, are you finding that it's almost like, would you be using AI in that respect to find, like Google? We used to have, I'm aging myself here. We used to have the books of encyclopedias, and we'd have to look it up and do our homework research that way, and then came Google, and then all of a sudden we're doing research on Google, but Google wasn't like to the expanse that AI is now. Are you finding
Yes.
it homework useful? And in which case, how is that being received in the school systems?
It depends what you kind of find, because there's in most cases there's just a chunk of, for example, a specific literature, and in the book you kind of have only just a few sections out of it all, and it can be much longer. And if I just go to AI and it doesn't have that specific knowledge regarding which section it is, or it can't find it, it gets much harder because it gets different context. It can give me more than I need, or kind of like a different answer than what is provided. Because if you only read a few sections, you have a specific context only to those. But just reading one more sentence can kind of change how you think of whole kind of like creation, right? The whole thing.
Right.
And schools perceive it. A lot of teachers say that they kind of find out. For example, my Bulgarian and literature teacher, she says that it's much easier to find out who has AI, and it's also not beneficial for them to use it because they wouldn't know what to do. But to be honest, that is kind of contradictive. Like, you can use AI to learn much faster. And I would say that school is, it's relatively a waste of a lot of years of our lives, I would say. Like, for example, to eighth grade here, you would know how to speak English, I would say, to a relatively good manner. You would know how to read, do all of this. And literally, for example, history as well. Like, okay, it's maybe good to know these things, but for example, our history that we study in our books, it's not even written by a Bulgarian. It's written by an Israeli person. I'm not sure, like, was it a Jew? And he's called Konstantin Ilichek, I think. And I think I read that somewhere, or I had talked to someone about this. And it's just so frustrating that we kind of have to go through these kind of like stories and all that we don't even know if they're real. And we're kind of made to study this to kind of like few hours, and that's kind of like my objection of it all.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you for that. You had mentioned, I always ask people to fill out a form before you come on. You had mentioned that you had an experience, and only if you want to speak about it. If not, we can go elsewhere. But you had an experience in life at a young age that would have broken a lot of people, and yet the experience made you stronger. Is that something you wouldn't mind touching on, or is that, because I look at it this way? before you even answer, potential in the listeners. And our stories that made us stronger might support others in enlightening them on how can support. Is that something you're open to talking about? Or like I said, we could go elsewhere.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Journalist was kind of like what I mentioned in the start with the family issues. So relatively why I started into like tech space and just learning for the 2 years.
Mhm.
Because our family, as for example, how my current reality is, because I live with my father and my grandma, they say that our family was, quite. It had a great bond and everything was going nicely until I was born, and something happened with mother's kind of like, I don't know, mentality, and it turned out so nicely for us. And it wasn't a divorce, but because they weren't married, but it's kind of like a breakup. And that kind of led to me having to, live at two different places, 1 week at one week at another. And I'm living here with my grandma and my father right now, and I'm staying here for almost 7 years now, and I haven't heard from my mother in like years. So the time that I have been living here, and see, I'm saying it with a smile because I have kind of I don't like any bad emotion from this, because to be honest, for someone to kind of like for you to get something, you must kind of give, and it matters, would it be financial, would it be time with a person, would it be an actual person, you kind of have to those to get to new ones. And I would say that this has kind of impacted my life. I wouldn't be the same person if it hadn't happened to me.
Right.
And it was just wasn't nice at all when it was actually happening, but right now I'm kind of happy that it's already gone, because the age of 10 was kind of place I had to make a decision with who I wanted to live. And big decisions at young ages, so that is something that builds up our character.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can't imagine how challenging it must have been. My parents divorced when I was 11. Actually, I was 9. My dad remarried when I was 11, but I remember when I was 13, here in the States, they take you to court and you're in front of the judge and they go, pick. And you're looking at both your parents and I'm with the alligator tears in my eyes going, how do you pick? How do you choose? I mean, I felt so torn and so betraying one of my parents by choosing. And it felt horrible. It was a horrible experience. And as you said, it does make us stronger and it builds character. Um, it's not a pleasant experience while you're going through it. I can't imagine how it was for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any brothers or other siblings, sisters?
Generally, direct siblings, no, but siblings from like my mother's side throughout, like I'm not sure how you exactly call it. I kind of forgot the term, but from another father. I have like I think 3 or 4 siblings here.
Yeah, here we call them steps. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. When you say it made you stronger, how did it make you stronger? How do you feel it made you stronger?
It made me start thinking about more. It's not like so like giggles and laughs. You're kind of just in a nicer like, because then you're taking things for granted. When you lose a person, in it's at a young age, or to be honest, at any age, when you lose a person, it emotions and stuff, and you're like, wait, I'm starting to think at, for example, different nights or days. What was it like with this person, right? You're starting to think about life, and not just how can I do something stupid or just have fun, but wait, what was it like before? How are
Mm.
these memories? Are they fading away? Are they not? Because a lot of what I've lived with my father has probably just with my mother has probably just faded away, but I still remember some things. Yeah, because it has been almost a decade, right? So it has been a lot of time since I've last seen her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful to hear you have your grandmother there as a female figure in your life, and it sounds like it's a strong bond between you, your dad, and her, which is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. My
fortunate.
grandmother has actually kind of babysit or some. Yeah, she has kind of been with a lot of 2 or 3 generations. I'd say, like trying to help out everybody, and even our kind of like distant relatives, kind of like cousins, I would say them distant relatives. They have been, from what I've heard, as stories, they have been coming over, having, like, for example, not even have to pay anything. She's just making, for example, lunch, dinner, inviting them over every single weekend for no reason, just to be with the distant relatives, to make them closer.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think that's awesome of your grandmother because it keeps the family bonds connected, and she sounds like the glue that keeps it all together. And I do want to acknowledge and thank you for your vulnerability because it's not always easy, but when we show vulnerability, it gives permission to others to start showing theirs as well. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So, what do you do for hobbies? Do you have anything that you like to play with or explore or anything else while you're
So I have been training calisthenics for around 2 years now, kind of, at these public bars outside, but I haven't been quite, what do I say, not just focused, but on this role of training more consistently. And these last 8 to 9 months, I have been. So I managed to get into this routine of kind of like going out training every week. And it I don't have a plan. I just go out there, make a full body workout, and that kind of clears my mind because I'm not at the PC. I'm not at home hearing any like TVs or whatever. You're just out seeing like cars, seeing people. It's a small town of mine, so I see a lot of people I know as well at so the bars going by. So it's just nice experience. And that's one thing I do. The other is kind of like to draw from time to time. It's just kind of interesting. Before, I used to go to, it's not certainly a school, it's just like a very small organization and quite small a building here in my town where you just go to learn how to draw with like all kinds of paintings, like paint or whatever. But I stopped going to that since like years probably. And I've just been around from time to time.
well, tell us a little bit about your show, your podcast, and for the listening audience, please send some Slavi some love and listen to his podcast because it's amazing. So tell us a little bit about it and how you came to start it, how long you've been doing it, that sort of thing.
So the podcast is called The Unheard of Community, and it started around a month ago. The main idea is that everybody's kind of invited. Everybody can be a guest because I would say that the most unordinary stories can come from the most ordinary people. But it doesn't mean that I should only invite people that I kind of meet on the street or whatever. I can invite successful founders, but the next day can be, or next episode, it can be, for example, a broke musician. It can be everybody because everybody has lessons, but there's just many kinds of people with kind of like characters that are not serious and just don't want to like cover these moments or help out someone starting out. And I don't take any payments or anything for people to come over, or like the opposite. I just want to like interesting raw stories and have them be played out so the unheard of people become heard. That's the main plot, I'd say.
I love that. I love that. And that's what actually inspired me to do the Awakening Potential show. I love it. So it brings me a lot of joy to hear other people's stories. And even though some stories that I've heard in the past are not as happy or they could be sad, happy, whatever, we all, as you said, to your point, there's always a lesson for each and every one of us to get. And that awakens potential within all of us. So, yeah. Why don't you share your link? Because there are people who are going to be listening, there are going to be people who are going to be watching, and all of Slavia's information is going to be in the show notes. So you could always go there for the links to listen as well. But at least when you give in the link and the
Do you want me to put it in the chat here, a link to
well,
the?
just tell us the where you can find it. And then, like I said, your link I could have put in the show notes. But if you want to send somebody to it, where would they find you? How's that?
So it's primarily on the YouTube platform, and you just have to search the Unheard of Community, and then you would see, our logo, which kind of it seems like audio waves, like a blue and white manner, like kind of like the logo. And we only have 3 episodes as of now, but 2 more have been recorded, and there's more that would need to be recorded like afterwards. And
Yeah,
it just gets more hectic when you have all of this has to be edited manually and have other things to do. So I think I wouldn't like stick to a schedule like posting every week, but just see when I can make it. YouTube is like a longer show thing, and anything can kind of stay and get engagement after a certain period.
love that. Yeah, I'm really excited. One of the things I end our show with all the time is I ask for what I call a pearl of wisdom, something that you think would land with the listening audience to awaken their potential. What's the first thing that comes to mind, and what would you like to impart?
Um, to be honest, I seen a lot of people that do they want to just have fun in life or do they want to be completely serious. I think there should be a mix of both. Every a lot of stuff happens through only communication, and I see that many people they don't focus on communication at all. Like they don't really practice understanding different kinds of characters and communicating nicely. And it generally in any space you go, communication is there. And if that is not at kind of like your peak, or you're just trying to improve yourself, you're probably going to kind of like how do I say, your potential will be lower. The awakening potential will be lower, kind of like your podcast model. So focus on communicating your thoughts out nicely, and when you start communicating with others, more ideas will pop out, and you might start understanding more of what you're kind of all about. Everything can come through even a single talk, like a whole in your character personality. So it is one of the most important things.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliantly said, brilliantly spoken, and very wise words. And communication is what got me where I am today. So thank you for that reminder because, most people, today's conversation, they don't realize that communication will support them in transforming. And sometimes it begins really quietly with awareness and honesty and courageous decisions, but it's progressive, right? And we don't have to abandon ourselves, but we start listening inward. For me, is where it comes from. So, Slavi, this has been such a great honor and a great experience to be with you today. And I'm so grateful that you took the time. I know it's like getting later there, getting closer to dinner hour, I believe, if I recall. And thank you for taking the time and being here with us. And as I said, all of your contact information will be shared in the show notes. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and just, you're just such a joy to be around.
Yeah, I also thank you sincerely for having me on. It was nice sharing a few of these things out because some were kind of just laying out as bricks, from this kind of like bag we kind of have on our shoulders. And it's nice to go on, it's nice to experience the other side of being on a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my experience too, because one of the things that you just mentioned brings me, I was speaking to somebody yesterday. I had a client session and we were talking about giving and receiving. And in essence, this is where I'm going to be on your show next week. And I invited you here. And to me, that's giving and receiving. And I know by doing the show, it brings me so much joy that I want that for you and everybody else, as well. But that's a model in life. When we give, we receive. And when we receive, it makes it easier to give because we're experiencing joy, right? So awesome. Well, thank you again. And I look forward to hearing from you, perhaps having you back in the future and seeing where you're at and what's opened up for you and that sort of thing as well. And, do stay in touch. And till then, I look forward to hear more.
Yeah, same here. We could do that. Right then.
For the listening audience, please remember to take a moment and definitely look up Slavi's show and support him, and give him some love and likes and all that other stuff. We all begin someplace. So if this conversation resonated deeply with you today, I'd like to ask you to come back and put your comments below and connect with me through Tranquil Solutions and our growing community of the new paradigm of awakened potential, or book a private mapping session with me today and see what's possible for you. And until next time, keep spiraling up, keep commanding your light, and remember the bridge between ordinary and extraordinary is built with small steps of courage and big leaps of faith. So until next time, come back to the Awakening Potential Show. Bye for now.
Yeah, awesome words. Bye.